Okay, today we are on now live with Wyatt McCain, who is a delightful friend of mine, who's also a wonderful MM, and we're going to explore what that means because I'm going to ask him about men today. And he sits there in Beverly Hills, yes, and he's the most amazing transformational coach, life coach, but also what I've discovered about you, Wyatt, over the period of time I've known you, is that you're incredibly insightful and that you are very clear-sighted and able to help people with issues that they don't even know that they have. So today, I want you to explore with me the idea about what men are about in today's world from your point of view in reflection of America and the world, and anything you'd like to share. So what's going on for you today with regards to men and men in the world today?
Most men in America are snowflakes who melt under the heat of pressure. You know, if you look at how diamonds are formed under intense pressure. So is a man's character. However, there is a concerted effort that's been going on for some years to weaken men by women who've disowned their feminine power for the purpose of men disowning their masculine power. This is not good for America. A masculine man wants a powerful feminine woman to be successful. A feminist is not a feminine woman. She's disowned her femininity to the women's movement. With all that women have accomplished since 1970, and it's huge, they, in disowning their femininity, have literally made it easier for men to not be men. Now, you and I are writing a book together called Modern Chivalry. Yet when you think about it, chivalry is the same today as it was in the past if a man knows that being a gentleman is part of his manhood. So I'll give you a quick example from an hour and a half ago. So I go to get my mail here at the post office in Beverly Hills. And I was saying hello to someone who works there. And as I turned, this lady was just finishing coming through the door, pushing her infant in a stroller. And I felt really bad. I apologized, 2-3 times. Just 1 second here while I drain my nasal passages. So that's also masculine for you women who need to be perfect because inside you feel so damn broken.
I'm going to challenge you on this in a minute, but carry on.
Oh, are you answering your questions for me now?
No, I'm just going to.
So
I'm storing them up.
Do you want to start this interview over again?
No.
Okay, we're only a few minutes into it. So I'll give you another example. I went to get my fourth coffee of the day. It was a busy day yesterday. And there was this lady with 2 young children. She's holding one, another one's in a crib. And, she hadn't been in there before, so she came from the wrong direction. And there were all these people behind me. And I'm not going to, she's not going to go to the end of the line. I said, please go ahead of me. And she said, oh, no, that's okay. I said, no, go right ahead. She said, oh, no. I said, ma'am, you have a hard time receiving? She said, what makes you think that? I said, well, in my generation, women and children go first. Now, I thought to myself, boy, this world is really upside down. So, and in the world, like if you go up to our frozen socialist cousins to the north in Canada, it's the same damn thing. And I would urge the people who are watching us right now to go onto their fancy dancy phone and look up Dr. Jordan Peterson. Jordan like the country or river. Peterson with an O. Your search engine will find it. He talks about this a lot. Identity politics. And then while you're at it, go find a true, authentic, feminine, powerful feminine woman, Heather MacDonald, M-A-C, then she has a space, and then Donald, as in our great American president. If you people are all upset right now, then you need to be upset because you've got your head up your ass in the identity politics that really is all about small groups who want to subjugate large groups of people. Being a masculine man is calling out and labeling people for what they're doing as the truth. Not a subjective truth, but the truth of, if a man's not masculine, sure, I'm an alpha male. Yet, I have a woman and her 2 children go ahead of me. Why? Because it's the right thing to do for the right reasons. Yet, and I had this conversation with a gal who was born here in America yesterday, whose father is a physician, and this lady's like in her mid to late 30s, so she's younger than my Seiko watch by a decade. It's funny. And we were talking about this issue about masculine men in America. Funny that this all happened yesterday, but there are no accidents. So here's the point. So we got onto the subject of Islam and men and women. And she said, well, I'm sure you've seen that women, they wear a scarf, and some are cover themselves up in a burqa, and some even have cover everything but their eyes. And I went, yeah, I've seen that. Pretty damn funny when they go to drink their coffee at Starbucks. But I said, there's something you want to tell me that's important, isn't there? And she said, yeah. She said, the reason these women dress like this and hide their femininity and their feminine power is to, and then she paused and said, well, how shall I say it? And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll intervene strategically and tell you what I sense and where you're going, and you interrupt me if I'm wrong. These women are enabling men to not be accountable for their own sexuality, to grow up and be real men. And it's not about religion, it's about the human condition. Is it still 2019? I don't want to miss the election for next year. So go ahead. Next question, dear. And yes, my eyes are sensitive. I'm wearing my anti-paparazzi sunglasses. Every day in Beverly Hills is Halloween. So go ahead.
So one of the challenges I see in what you say is that you're promoting that the extremes be...
I'm not promoting anything.
No, but that the masculine male is the male that needs to be there. And in my experience that I studied gender dynamics is that there is a range of men who are all potentially strong men, but they have different attributes of feminine and masculine energy, and the way they attach themselves to the world is different.
Yeah.
Same with women. So I find it challenging when you talk about the masculine male and the feminine has to be the female has to be the feminine, because I see that range of characters in both sides. And I think that is the key to unlocking this polarity that is pulling the world apart. So being a masculine-minded woman myself and being all female...
You're kidding.
I prefer to align men to being men, but not necessarily all of them to be masculine. So if we equate masculine to being clear, strong, focused, direct, confident, enlightened, then that's what I would like for all men, and same for women. So my challenge is that we all should become more enlightened, but that we don't lose the core of our energy, which creates the kind of men and women that we are. And I know from my experience, before you get into any other diversity, such as sexual orientation or generation or culture or religion, that there's a fundamental range of men and a fundamental range of women. And that we've never really understood this. In the old days when we had Mars and Venus, it was very clear. When Dr. John Gray wrote that book, that was very polarized. But I see it as, and you know that there are men who are not like you, but who are all male and okay, and potentially as enlightened as you, maybe even similar political affiliation or whatever, but that they have a different energy. So I look at some leaders, and the one that I would often quote as being, in my terms, a feminine-minded male, an intuitive-minded male, is Nelson Mandela, in his prime, coming out of prison and being that kind of leader, as opposed to an enlightened masculine male who might be more of a warrior leader. But it's the enlightenment bit that makes a difference, wouldn't you say? That when people are unenlightened, they don't open the door, and when they're unenlightened, they don't see differences as valuable. So the enlightenment piece is very important for men today. And I wanted to focus on men because many men say to me that they're confused. And I want to understand what that confusion is. I don't think you're confused.
Well, the reason why, go ahead.
Well, I don't think you're confused because you spend a long time in your life working on understanding yourself and understanding human beings around you.
That's right.
Where does the enlightenment piece fit in for men today? Are most men enlightened, or are they struggling?
So we're going to back up 27 seconds to something that you had to say. And I'm just going to jump right in the deep end here. If you need a life jacket, let me know, but I think your spirit has its own buoyancy. What has derailed masculine men is this notion that life is governed by emotions alone as the most important feature of being a man. Not to mention, good, you're looking at that. So look, let's just cut to the chase scene, as they say in Hollywood, where every day is Halloween. What's really going on here is that when a human being who is a man, masculine at his core, or a woman, a baby girl, feminine at her core, and this has been documented year after year for decades, that what determines someone's actions and beliefs in the world when they are considered an adult, even if they're not on the inside, because a person can be frozen at different developmental stages within themselves from when they were children, and their self-esteem was either built or destroyed by the time they were 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
So the point is this. There we go. Look, folks. Whatever our core relationships are about, whatever someone as a child experiences with their role models, is going to be experienced in their emotions. It can build or whack out the strings of their nervous system, and key decisions can be made, and all of that is interwoven in our nervous system, and it becomes subpersonalities in our subconscious mind that house blueprints about how to act and behave. And it's been documented for decades now that I'll be overly conservative here. It's 99, but I'll be conservative. 97.979% of a person's personality is determined by environment, has nothing to do with DNA. And so this notion that if it just feels, I remember from the 60s, if it feels good, do it. or do your own thing. Well, guess what? Being accountable as an adult requires being responsible for the consequences of our actions. You know, if I smell smoke in a theater and I think there's fire, then I'm doing the right thing to warn people because I'm inspired by the right reason. Some people yell fire when there is no fire, or they even yell fire when there is a fire. But instead of being inspired by the right reason, they're motivated by, oh boy, and I can be a hero and get attention.
So
and
can I ask?
No, I'm not done. I want to finish.
Okay.
You can,
I want to ask you
be more of a feminine woman here. Hold
no,
that thought. I want to hear.
It's a clarifying
I
question.
want to finish. I want to finish
yeah.
there. Or unless you want to interview yourself, then thanks very much, and I'll listen. Okay, great. So look, the state of masculinity in America today is under attack because for too long a time, for decades upon decades upon decades, since the VJ Day, and if you people want to know what VJ is, don't be lazy asses, go look it up. J as in Juliet, VJ Day. So, and if you don't like what I said, that's your problem, folks. Because this idea of political correctness is one of the tools that destroys masculinity in America. This idea that we need people to approve of us or like us is crap. If you're always giving your power away and wanting people to like you and approve of you, which should be the bonus in life, not a requirement, then you have no life. Now go ahead, dear. What did you want to say?
I wanted to clarify. It was a clarifying question of what you said. Are you saying that our DNA does not define us, but our environment and our upbringing does? Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that to say it's DNA is to have an excuse to hide behind. Just like people go around saying, oh, I've got this phobia, or have you looked at all the different types of excuses?
Oh,
and
I
the
agree.
drugs that are prescribed for people? I mean, this is insanity. This is insane.
I agree with you that
it's Marxism at its utmost.
But I'm looking at, I think it's all about one's own responsibility, oneself, but that the personality we have comes from
that exclusively.
Yeah, it is.
It comes from our choices that we make. Even if we're children, we're making them.
Yeah, but my theory is, and my feeling and my experience is that we are both nature and nurture. And I often talk about nature, nurture, and necessity. Nature, what we're born with, skills-wise, what nature, nurture, how we're brought up, that environment and everything about it. And then the necessity of our moment in time. What do we need to do? What do we think we need to do? Do we think we need to be controlled outside or inside? And for me, this is where we do agree. It's all about an internal locus of control. It's about understanding who you are inside, not being controlled by the external perspective. Yeah. So I think we agree on that. But I think it's and I think it's nature, nurture, and necessity. And the world has become very it's become very cruel for some people because they've given away their power. And so they see the world as cruel, and therefore they go down with it rather than recognizing it as an opportunity to be more of themselves. And that's why I'm asking you about men. Going back to that question, are men, let's forget women at the moment, are men understanding what enlightenment is with the growth of all these men's groups and men getting together to find out who they are?
Okay. You want to find out who you are? Look at we recently have Memorial Day in America. To me, it's the most important national holiday of all. And the only reason to be grateful for anything in life is so you can unlock the vault to your authenticity, which will allow the healing, the forgiveness, and the wisdom of the ages to flow through you like it's coming down a riverbed, washing away the garbage people have thrown into your life that you've even said welcome because you thought, you meaning whoever it is, that you deserved it. Now, look, let's cut to the chase scene. We just had Memorial Day, and I did a special Facebook Live. From one of our national cemeteries, we have one here in Los Angeles, of course. And if you want to be grateful, not because you wipe your hand across your forehead and say, wow, I'm so glad that's not me, while you see a 26-year-old man who has no legs and only part of one arm, who's going to go through that for 60, 70 years, because that person provided Wyatt's freedom.
Yes.
So gratitude is about, you know what, here I am in my early 70s, but I got to wake up today. And my whole focus was, okay, I got to allow myself to be a conduit through which I ask great questions, meaning I allow the natural transformation of life. I'm gonna now segue back to something you said about the cruelty of life. My dear, fairness is not in the master blueprint for human beings. The human condition hasn't changed since we were living in caves being hunted by animals. So this notion of, oh, the white man did all this to the red man is bullshit. People were attacking one another. Well, I want to fit. No, this is part of. Okay, well, go ahead.
No,
we'll just have you interview you from now on.
No. It's a conversation, Wyatt. That's my point, that we actually agree on that, because we're saying that to take ownership of yourself is the most important role that we can take with ourselves. Yes? Is that right?
Well, I thought that point had been made by you a couple of minutes ago. But that was established, a couple of minutes ago. Look, dear.
So the cruel world is somebody else's viewpoint, isn't it?
Look,
so what is the solution then, right, for men?
What's fucked up in America is with men is that they become snowflakes melting under pressure instead of seeing every obstacle as containing lessons. That if they would apply the lesson to their life, they would pivot into freedom, step into the eye of the hurricane, and now induce their stress intelligently instead of looking for other people to blame it on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I fully agree with that.
Men and women are not equal. And when women get pissed off, it's because they're being insecure and they're not owning their feminine power. They go to victimhood. There's a huge victimology going on. It's on campuses. It's throughout the corporate world. Your whole thing about wanting to get to know me and join forces and work together was with the understanding you saw that I work with clients who I vet very closely for the purpose of going down into their blueprints and getting the freedom to actually have a life of purpose. Instead of, as George Bernard Shaw wrote, being a feverish little clod of ailments, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making men and women happy. A happy life means a happy wife. Most men are saying that because they're acting like wimps. And the women are exhausted having to be the husband in the marriage, and they want the man to own his damn masculine power. And yet some women will set their husband up, or in dating, to fail and disappoint them so the woman can feel superior to her own shortcoming. There's no courage there. And this is the main reason you have 6 out of 10 marriages in California ending in divorce.
Yeah.
And it's a lousy role model for the kids because they're sponges and they're going to repeat it.
Yeah. And there's no conversation that actually gets them beyond that on a daily basis.
No, there's none. So this idea of what you're doing
Yeah.
For the boardroom. And like I told you last time we spoke, I said, here's something you might want to consider using, which is from the boardroom to the stock room, for everything in between. If men and women stop,
Yes.
I mean, this idea of women calling themselves goddesses, why? Because they got to prove they're enough. A woman already is enough if she'd own her power instead of disowning it to get acceptance from her sisters.
Yes.
Me Too go ahead.
Yeah. Well, Me Too has started that ripple, but I do think there are a lot of women, as you described, but there are also a lot of women and men who are starting to want to shift the world. So I believe that there is a shift. Do you think there is a shift coming in the world that is positive about getting beyond Me Too and getting beyond the cruelty and the polarization?
It's how soon that occurs, and it's not a ripple. Because if you throw a rock on a still body of water and then it becomes still later on, there's still a rippling effect going on under the surface. What's going on right now between men and women is that the drama queens, the feminists who are not owning their feminine power, have hijacked the Me Too movement.
Yes, I think that's happening.
Yeah, totally. And the women who legitimately need the support of other powerful feminine women are not getting the support they need. And so there's this polarizing effect. And before what you are asking me is going to happen in stages, of course, over a long period of time, is only going to happen to the degree that men and women pull their head out of their ass and stop being part of the problem and become within themselves. Men own their masculine power instead of siphoning off what they didn't get from their mommies. Women don't want to be a mom to a man who's pretending to be masculine.
Absolutely. So
and men don't want to be the great grandfather or papa to a woman simply be so that the man can fulfill his need to be needed. If a man wants to be masculine, he's got to give what he needs to the world 24/7. And this is true for women as well. We got to come together and support and empower one another instead of enabling, so that we can hide from ourselves. And when I say we, I just don't mean men to be real men, but for women to be real women again. There's nothing wrong with a woman being powerful in her femininity by receiving the graciousness of a man opening the door for her, or getting up when she returns to the dinner table as he stood up when she went to go powder her nose.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's a gift.
It is a gift, but I think it's also determined by the ability for each individual to be authentic in their own maleness or femaleness, as I would put it. And it's about authenticity. It's about being honorable to yourself.
Yes, exactly correct. Not every alpha male is like Dan Pena or Donald Trump.
No.
The reason why people hate Trump so much is because they don't want to look at their accountability for why their lives aren't working. You're never going to have fulfillment unless you bring presence into your life.
Yes. And that's what it really comes down to, is each individual understanding themselves, but also understanding their differences to each other. That's what I'm always saying, is that
we're all mirrors for one another.
We're all here for each other. We're not against each other. It's not about having more than, it's about knowing who you are and what it is you can give to the world. That's what I see, as that everybody has a natural gift.
You nailed it. That's right, Doc. That's it. And it was the same with your parents in England and mine in America when the greatest challenge to Western civilization was posed in the Second World War. Yes. And yet, like is taught in the Marine Corps in boot camp, all my friends told me this, their drill instructor said, You will adapt to any obstacle or situation and overcome it. What does that mean? That means acknowledge where you are. You don't need to figure everything out. Well, this happened in my DNA when I was on my 4th birthday, and it's destroyed my life for the next 62 years. That's bullshit. Whatever weapons are used against a child, weapons here are used against a child, when they use those same weapons in their own life, they re-experience their childhood pain. They don't get well. Instead of figuring everything out, we can learn from what happened. It'll be revealed to us. But we've got to make the decision that the first step of a journey of inner discovery of our own inner strength, and to literally rediscover we're more than enough, just start walking through the fear. It will transform into what the fear contains, which is its opposite. The fear contains one's courage. You want to find your courage, walk through your damn fear. If somebody doesn't like you, okay, but I don't agree with them.
Oh, we don't have to agree with each other, but I don't believe we have to fight each other either. I think we should be able to hear each other's points of view and be able to have a lively discussion about that.
Thank you very much. That's democracy.
That's democracy, but at the moment there seems, not just in America, but in my country as well, UK, there's a polarization of, well, if that's what you believe, then leave my house, you know. And I think that is a shift in the world which I don't like. But there's also another shift in the world, which is more and more that I come across, is what I call wise men and women who are willing to listen and to absorb and contribute in a way that comes together. Recently, it was interesting because I often talk about differences. Somebody said, but what about similarities? And I said, well, it's not about being the same, but it's about having similar viewpoints or principles or values. It's about, you know, do we want a world where we're chivalrous, or do we want a world where we're not? Do you want a world which is unconditional love or not? You know, those are the commonalities that
what
we
other
have
kind of love is there?
Well, there's unconditional love is the only way that we can do, but I don't know that a lot of people understand that. But that's the movement that we're part of and that we're walking towards. And it's that balance between how we are, who we are in today's world.
That's right.
And that's the necessity bit of my nature, nurture, and necessity. And I agree with you that, you know, women have a lot of things to sort out, but just focusing on men and this idea that what one piece of advice could you share with men?
I don't give advice.
No, or one wisdom then.
No, but you're saying
you're
saying the same thing. You're using a different word, but you're really the intention is the same.
Well, what is your ideal scenario in the world if you had a?
Well, there is no ideal anything. Things are the way they are, and they're not the way they're not.
Okay.
Why don't you reframe your question in terms of the meaning you want to convey in it, and then I'll answer.
Well, I suppose it's. If you like, I would love there to be world harmony. What is it you would love there to be if there was a magic wand and that anything could come to be?
Well, first of all, thank you for your question. However, that's not going to happen because the human condition includes darkness. All you got to look at is what happened in the 20th century from the Archduke and his wife in Sarajevo back in 14 to what is going on today. We all have similar lessons to learn.
Yeah.
What matters most is that I bring gratitude to whatever is hurting me and consider it a gift from life. And then by that different meaning or framing I give to whatever's going on, I can learn from it and it can become the foundation for future success. The purpose of history to be a great teacher for each of us for tens upon thousands of years. The purpose of history is that it's really about relationships between people. Some are generals or admirals. Some are prime ministers or presidents or sultans or kings. It isn't the title of the person.
No.
It's about what is the meaning they're going to give to being the best they can be. I don't focus each day when I get out of bed on, okay, I'm going to go at 100% today, or I'm going to go to 110%. No, when I get my tired, aching bones about to put my slippers in the morning, before I get out of bed, I start at 100%. And my goal is to push it out to 2700x. What does that mean? That means that I don't have a backup plan. I go full out, all out.
Yes.
For, as George Bernard Shaw wrote, the harder I work, the more fully I live. For life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of, he wrote, it is sort of a splendid torch which I've got hold of for the moment. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before I hand it on to future generations. That's my answer to your question, Doc.
And I think you've created a very, very beautiful piece of wisdom, if I might say, because all that you said there was magic. And I like the idea of being the best we can be, being 100% plus, plus, plus. I feel the same. So I think on that note, we should just finish our interview today, because I think that for any man listening to that, there's a huge amount of wisdom in that. And I'm very grateful to you, Wyatt, for saying it that way. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Pauline, I'm always grateful to speak with you. And, you know, I'm laughing because I was at the ophthalmologist this morning. And he said, now be sure to wear some really dark sunglasses for the rest of the day. And I said, well, I've got a pair of anti-paparazzi sunglasses. And you know what he said? He said, how do I get a pair? So, hey, it's been grand. And after I recharge my phone, I'll give you a call. I won't call collect, okay?
No.
But I want everybody to know that the doc here has a heart deeper than the Grand Canyon, and her whole purpose, if you follow her, her whole purpose is to make it better between men and women. That the communication between men and women for the post-Me Too world is for not just the boardroom, but all the way to the stock room and everything in between.
Absolutely.
And she's worked with some of the top corporations in the world, in Europe, here in America. And I'm really honored that she wanted to work with me, and also really proud, and pride is an ego, though it can be, but in a humble way, that we have this lady who is a treasure here in America to make the kind of contribution to the world what we need to, and that relationship, as President Trump and Prime Minister May spoke of today, is really the most important alliance and the longest serving one between the United Kingdom and the United States that the world's ever seen. And now she gets to bring that as an ambassador for goodwill and improving the harmony between men and women. And I just wanted to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you, Wyatt. And I look forward to many more magical conversations like this as we go forward to help the world, as we will do. Thank you.